In the grim darkness of the far future, there is only war. But what happens when something, or someone, that doesn't belong to this universe suddenly arrives in it? Not a god, not a demon, not a Primarch reborn, but a man. A man who believes he is a god. A man who wields unimaginable power, wrapped in the flag of a long-dead nation. Today, we explore what might happen if Homelander, the most dangerous man from the boys' universe, arrived in the world of Warhammer 40,000. It begins with a tear in reality. Somewhere deep within the warp, a ripple forms. Not a rift born of chaos sorcery, but something stranger, an intrusion. The Emperor's tarot cannot predict it, the astropaths cannot sense it, and even the most ancient demons pause to feel it pass. It's as if a god with no soul, no psychic signature, simply appears, bypassing the very laws that define existence in the 41st millennium. And then, on a nameless imperial world orbiting a dying sun, a figure descends from the sky. Blue suit, red cape, golden shoulders, a smile that doesn't quite reach his eyes. The soldiers of the Astra Militarum on patrol don't know what to make of him. His form is human, yet wrong. His presence radiates authority, arrogance, and confidence in equal measure. Homelander touches down, the dirt beneath his boots sizzling from the heat of re-entry. He looks around. There are no skyscrapers, no cities of glass and steel, no cameras, no cheering crowds, just endless ruins, tanks built from scrap iron, soldiers with grim faces, and rusted rifles. He frowns. "Where's the press?" he mutters. Within minutes, the guardsmen approach, weapons raised. They shout warnings, command him to identify himself, to kneel before the Emperor's law. Homelander tilts his head, bemused. "Emperor?" he says softly. "You people still do that sort of thing?" When one of the guards fires, the last bolt hits his chest and dissipates harmlessly. The others follow suit, filling the air with crimson beams. But Homelander doesn't flinch. Instead, he sighs, expression turning cold. "Okay," he says. "So, we're doing this." A flash of heat vision. The squad vanishes in a single sweep of red light. In seconds, all that remains are molten weapons and the faint smell of ash. Homelander hovers above the carnage, scanning the horizon with his enhanced vision. He sees a settlement nearby, crude structures of rockcrete and plasteel, a manufactorum belching smoke, a world ruled by fear, primitive, authoritarian, familiar. For a moment, he smiles again. The Imperium does not take long to notice. Within hours, orbital augurs detect something unusual, a humanoid form moving at hypersonic speed across the atmosphere, breaking sound barriers without propulsion. The Adeptus Mechanicus cannot categorize it. The Inquisition dispatches an agent, interrogator Lyra Voss, a veteran of demon incursions. Her dropship descends into the wasteland where the reports originated. What she finds is silence, entire platoons erased, tanks cut open like paper, civilians kneeling before a man who floats above them, demanding to know who their emperor is and how to meet him. Some have begun calling him the Sky God. Others whisper, false angel. Voss watches from a ridge through her Auspex scope. The figure's aura is strange, not psychic, but wrong. Not of the warp, but not of matter either. His power is physical, yet divine in effect. She transmits her findings to orbit. Subject is male, extremely powerful, displays flight, heat projection, and invulnerability. Does not match any known Xenos or demon classification. Recommendation, Exterminatus authorization, pending. But she's too late. Homelander hears the dropship before she can finish her report. He's behind her in a heartbeat, smiling like a predator who's found something interesting. "You're watching me," he says, voice calm but heavy with menace. "That's rude." She turns, bolter drawn, but he's faster. In an instant, he grabs her wrist, bones crack. She tries to invoke the Emperor's name, to speak a prayer of banishment, but he interrupts her with a smirk. "Your Emperor," he says, his eyes glowing faintly red, "sounds a lot like me." She screams as the heat vision ignites. Moments later, the sky glows with the light of her vaporized remains. From that day, the Imperium begins to change. Rumors spread like wildfire. A new demigod walks among men. Not a primarch, not a saint, but something else entirely. Some worlds hail him as the return of Sanguinius. Others denounce him as a false idol. And Homelander loves it. The adoration fills the void within him that no camera ever could. He demands statues, hymns, obedience. He kills those who refuse. His charm wins over the desperate, farmers, laborers, even a few misguided priests who see his radiant form and mistake it for divine favor. In a galaxy where faith is the only light, Homelander becomes another false sun. Meanwhile, the Inquisition debates how to respond. Some call for an immediate strike by the Grey Knights. Others argue that this being might be an angel of the Emperor himself. The Ordo Hereticus fears another Horus, and perhaps they're right, because on the hive world of Arcturus Prime, Homelander stands before a cathedral built in the Emperor's name. The local cardinal kneels before him, trembling. Homelander places a hand on the man's shoulder, his smile immaculate. "You've got a good thing going here," he says softly. "People worship you, fear you, obey you. I get it. Really, I do." Then he tightens his grip. "But I think they'd prefer someone who can actually hear them." With a single squeeze, the cardinal's spine snaps. The congregation gasps, and then falls silent as Homelander rises into the air, cape flowing, light glinting off his eyes. "Your Emperor isn't here," he proclaims. "I am." Within a week, thousands of systems transmit garbled messages. False angel rising. New god of man. Divine Superman demands allegiance. The ecclesiarchy declares him excommunicate traitoris. The Inquisition dispatches kill teams. And in the depths of the warp, something stirs. The Chaos Gods take notice. Khorne admires the violence. Slaanesh adores the narcissism. Tzeentch sees opportunity. But it is the Prince of Chaos, undivided, the entity known as Abaddon's master, who whispers first. "He has no soul," the warp murmurs, "yet he hungers like a god. Perhaps he can be turned." Homelander, of course, knows nothing of this. He only sees a galaxy full of worshippers, waiting to be conquered, to be loved, to be ruled by someone who truly deserves it. Someone perfect, someone like him. As he stares into the void of space, from the ruins of a cathedral, he mutters, "Maybe this universe finally gets it." He doesn't see the storm brewing, fleets mobilizing, assassins gathering, and demons watching from beyond the veil. For the first time since the Age of Apostasy, the Imperium prepares to hunt a god that bleeds light, not faith. And in the shadows of terror, the High Lords convene. The question echoes through marble halls and prayer chambers alike. What if this Homelander is the Emperor's punishment? The High Lords of Terror convene beneath the dim glow of the Astronomicon. The chamber is silent except for the endless hum of the Emperor's psychic light. Inquisitors, cardinals, and generals stand around the obsidian table, their faces drawn tight with exhaustion and fear. The name of the new threat has reached even the throne world, Homelander. Some believe him to be a saint gone rogue. Others whisper he might be the vanguard of a Xenos god. None can agree on what he truly is. Grand Inquisitor Halbrecht slams his gauntleted hand onto the table. He burned 3 worlds in 12 days. Entire populations kneel to him. He mocks the ecclesiarchy, destroys our armies, and the people cheer for him. This thing is not divine. It's heresy made flesh. The Fabricator General's mechanical voice drones from the shadows. Telemetry indicates his physiology defies known biological limits. No genetic decay, no weakness, no cybernetic signature. Pure flesh, yet impervious to energy discharge. Even plasma fails to wound him. Across the table, the Lord Commander of the Segmentum Solar leans forward. Then he's no demon? No, Halbrecht says grimly. He bleeds. He breathes. But he is not of us. Whatever he is beyond science, beyond faith. A heretic with the power of a god, silence follows, broken only by the rasping breath of a sister of silence standing guard. Finally, the ecclesiarch speaks. Then he must be tested in fire and faith. Send the Grey Knights. If he survives, we'll know what we face. While the Imperium argues, Homelander acts. His reign spreads like wildfire through the sector known as Hesteran Reach. Dozens of worlds fall under his command, not through conquest, but through charisma. He appears before crowds, hovering like a golden idol, promising protection, peace, and deliverance from tyranny. Your emperor, he tells them, has sat silent for 10,000 years. I'm here now. I'm listening to the hopeless and the desperate. His words are irresistible. Imperial banners are torn down. Shrines are rebuilt with his symbol, a stylized red eagle across a sunburst. Priests preach his gospel under threat of annihilation. The people call him Father of the Light. But not all are fooled. The Adepta Sororitas deploy a contingent of battle sisters under Canoness Verena Morth to confront the false god on the world of Carthus IV. They march into his shining city, chanting the Emperor's creed, bolters raised. Homelander greets them at the gates, floating above the marble spires that now bear his likeness. Ladies, he says, smiling, you've come a long way. I admire that kind of faith. Canoness Verena's voice booms through her vox amp. In the Emperor's name, I command you to kneel and repent, false one. Your lies end today. He lands before her, amused. You know, he says softly, people used to talk to me like that back home. Never ended well for them either. She fires. Blessed bolts tear through the air, each round consecrated with holy oils and prayers of purity. They strike his chest and shatter harmlessly. Homelander doesn't flinch. He takes a step forward, eyes glowing. Cute, he murmurs. Twin beams of crimson light lance out, cutting through the front ranks. Power armor melts, sisters scream. Verena charges, chainsword revving, a blur of faith and fury. Homelander catches her blade in one hand. Her armor hums as she pushes with all her strength. He barely notices. Do you really believe in him? He asks. With every breath, she gasps. He leans close, whispering, That's your mistake. The light flares again. When it fades, nothing remains of the Canoness but her scorched armor. Hours later, orbiting ships of the Adeptus Mechanicus record seismic readings from Carthus IV, an entire city turned to glass. Transmission ends abruptly. The last image shows a figure standing amidst the ruins, cape fluttering, eyes burning like twin suns. Back on Terra, Halbrecht receives the data and whispers, he's learning. Because Homelander is learning. In the absence of Vaught's handlers, of cameras and PR teams, he is free to be what he always wanted, a savior without limits. He experiments with fear and worship, discovering that terror brings obedience faster than love. On every world he conquers, he creates a hierarchy, those who adore him and those who burn. The Chaos Gods watch closely. In the Imperium, they argue. Slanesh giggles with delight. So beautiful, so cruel, a being of perfect vanity. He is mine, Korn snarls. He kills without rage. He lacks honor. He is nothing. Tzeentch's laughter ripples like smoke. You see only blood. I see potential. A god who doesn't believe in gods. How ironic. Even Nurgle rumbles with amusement. He brings no decay, but his presence rots faith. That is contagion enough. The warp shifts. Something ancient and vast takes interest, not to claim him, but to test him. For the first time, demons whisper his name with curiosity. Not hatred, not reverence, curiosity. Meanwhile, the Ordo Malleus dispatches a Grey Knight strike cruiser, the Eidolon of Purity, under Grand Master Asterion Vale. Their mission? Engage, identify, and if possible, capture the being known as Homelander. When their ship enters orbit over the captured world of Vornis, they find no resistance, only silence. Cities stand pristine, their streets immaculate, banners shining in impossible symmetry. No chaos marks, no decay. Yet the air feels wrong. Too perfect. Too still. Asterion and his squad teleport to the planet's surface. Their armor gleams under twin suns. As they advance through the marble avenues, they see murals, images of Homelander slaying demons, blessing children, smiling down upon worshippers. He's replaced the Emperor in every depiction. Blasphemy, mutters one knight. Asterion raises a hand. Focus. We find the source. They find him in the central plaza, standing atop a statue of himself. He greets them with that same disarming smile. Wow, he says. You guys really went all in on the whole medieval thing, huh? Asterion steps forward. By order of the Ordo Malleus, you are to submit for examination and judgment under the authority of the Emperor of Mankind. Homelander chuckles. You talk like a lawyer. You think your Emperor scares me? He is the light of humanity. Then where is he? The Grand Master fires first. Psy-cannon shells streak through the air, blessed with the names of saints. Homelander doesn't dodge. He lets them hit. The explosions carve through the plaza, vaporizing statues and fountains. When the smoke clears, Homelander is untouched. He tilts his head. Magic bullets. Cute. Before the knights can react, he's among them. One punch sends a Terminator flying through a wall. Another blow crushes armor and bone alike. Asterion swings his nemesis hammer, connecting with Homelander's jaw. The impact echoes like thunder. For a moment, he's driven back. Asterion presses the attack, chanting litanies of smiting. Lightning arcs from his weapon. By the Emperor's will. Homelander wipes blood from his lip, the first he's shed since arriving in this universe. He looks at it, surprised, and then smiles, wider than ever before. Oh, he says softly. Finally. He hits back. The hammer shatters. The Grand Master is hurled through a cathedral wall, armor crumpling like tin. Homelander lands beside him, crouching. You almost made me feel something, he whispers. Almost. The Grey Knight's final transmission ends there. Hours later, a psychic scream echoes through the warp. Not from the dead knights, but from something deeper. The Emperor himself feels it. His long dead eyes within the golden throne flicker faintly as though disturbed. Somewhere across the galaxy, astropaths convulse and die as one message burns through their minds, clear and cold as starlight. A new god walks among men, and he is not afraid of the Emperor. Across the galaxy, panic spreads like wildfire. The death of an entire Grey Knight strike force, one of the Imperium's most sacred and secret weapons, is unthinkable. Their mere existence is hidden from all but the highest ranks, and yet whispers escape through terrified survivors of psychic relays. On every world touched by Homelander's shadow, statues of the Emperor are torn down overnight. Some do it in fear, others in faith. The ecclesiarchy calls it the Sky Heresy. Sermons ring through cathedrals from Terra to Macragge, declaring the winged false god an abomination. But for every world that curses his name, another kneels before it. Homelander doesn't need to conquer. He only needs to appear. The cameras may be gone, but the galaxy is filled with billions of eyes, and he knows how to perform. He learns to hover above armies with arms wide open, sunlight gleaming from his cape. He delivers speeches about freedom, strength, and destiny, the same hollow words that once filled his world with fear. But here, in a realm of faith and fire, his charisma becomes divine. "I'm not your emperor," he tells a gathering of millions on the shrine world of Cyranthia. "I'm better. I'm here. And I don't need your prayers. I just need you to believe in me." The crowd erupts in worship. Some call him savior, others call him heretic, but no one looks away. From the bridge of an orbiting Imperial cruiser, Captain Loris Dren watches in horror. "It's happening again," he whispers. "Another Horus." The ship's astropath screams suddenly, eyes rolling back, voice echoing with 1,000 tones. The warp watches him. The warp hungers. Moments later, the astropath explodes into light. Not demonic corruption, but pure energy bursting from within. It leaves behind a single image burned into the wall, a winged man smiling. In the depths of the warp, the ruinous powers debate what to do with this new arrival. Slanesh purrs in delight. He is exquisite, pride so sharp it could cut reality. "I would give him pleasure everlasting," Tzeentch ripples in thought. He has no soul, no psychic spark, yet he distorts fate wherever he walks. He cannot be manipulated through the warp, yet his will reshapes it. How fascinating, Khorne growls. He kills without hate, without passion, a coward's strength, not worthy of my skulls. Nurgle chuckles, bloated and patient. All things rot, even arrogance. Let him rise. The higher he climbs, the sweeter his decay. But amid their bickering, a darker presence stirs. Something ancient, something older than the Chaos Gods themselves. A fragment of the void. It watches Homelander through the barrier of reality and whispers a single truth. He does not belong. And yet, it cannot touch him. His very nature, soulless, unbound by the psychic realm, makes him immune to the whispers of the warp. Even the gods find themselves frustrated, their influence sliding off him like rain on glass. For the first time in millennia, the Imperium meets something it cannot consume. That makes Homelander unique, dangerous, and to Chaos, uniquely valuable. On Terra, the Inquisition convenes again. The losses are mounting, sectors burn, faith fractures. The Mechanicus warns that his presence causes strange distortions, matter bending, energy fluctuations, gravitational anomalies. The scientists call it localized reality assertion. To the ecclesiarchy, it's blasphemy. To the Ordo Malleus, it's proof that he is something beyond human understanding. Inquisitor Halbrecht addresses the lords again. "We have faced demons, Xenos, heretics, and traitor gods. But never this. He has no warp presence, yet his power equals a Primarch's. He does not command fleets, yet entire sectors bend to his will. He offers protection, stability, and hope. The same things the Emperor once promised, but with a smile. The Lord Commander stands. Then we must remind the galaxy why the Emperor does not smile. Plans are made, a coalition forms, Grey Knights reforged, custodes dispatched, and even the Sisters of Silence mobilized. It is a crusade unlike any before, not against chaos, but against one man. They call it the Homelander heresy. Meanwhile, deep in the Segmentum Pacificus, Homelander finds something unexpected. Resistance not from soldiers, but from an Astartes chapter, the Black Templars. They do not kneel, they do not worship, they fight. When Homelander arrives in orbit, above the fortress world of Gathis Prime, he finds orbital defenses already firing. Macro-cannon shells detonate around him as he glides effortlessly through the void. He lands before the fortress gates, cape fluttering in the storm. A voice echoes from above. "You are no angel," roars Marshal Dravik. "You are the devil's jest." Homelander looks up, grinning. "Cute armor. Do you guys ever take a day off from yelling?" Bolt of fire rains down. He moves faster than sight, tearing through squads with casual ease. Their blades cannot pierce him. Their prayers cannot touch him. But when Dravik himself charges, something different happens. His sword, the relic blade Oathkeeper, strikes Homelander's arm and draws blood. Homelander steps back, stunned. The wound glows faintly before closing. He looks at the weapon, then at the warrior. "You actually hurt me." Dravik stands firm. "I fight in his name. Every wound you take is a mark of your failure to be divine." Homelander's expression changes. The smile fades. "You think I'm pretending? You think I'm not what I say I am?" He grabs the Marshal by the throat, lifting him off the ground. The Space Marine struggles, servos whirring, but the grip is absolute. "Tell you what," Homelander whispers, "let's see if your Emperor saves you." The heat vision flares. Dravik doesn't scream. His armor melts, his body vaporizes. But his last words echo through the Voxnet. Faith endures. For the first time since arriving in this universe, Homelander feels something akin to irritation, maybe even doubt. He wipes the ash from his glove, staring at the stars. "You people keep talking about this Emperor," he mutters. "Maybe it's time I met him." On Terra, alarms blare. Astropaths across the segmentum scream in unison as an unidentified energy signature bursts from the edge of the Sol system, moving faster than any known vessel. The Imperial Navy scrambles entire fleets, but they're too slow. Homelander is coming, alone. He cuts through the void like a comet, trailing plasma from atmospheric friction, passing through the asteroid belt in seconds. Automated defenses target him. He weaves through orbital mines and defense lasers with contemptuous ease. The skies above Terra ignite as he breaches the atmosphere, sonic booms tearing clouds apart. For the first time in 10,000 years, the cradle of mankind trembles. In the shadow of the Golden Palace, custodes take formation. The Sisters of Silence move in silence. Titans kneel in prayer. And in the Sanctum Imperialis, the corpse of a god stirs ever so slightly upon his throne. Homelander hovers above the Imperial Palace, eyes glowing with radiant arrogance, voice amplified across the world below. "Emperor of mankind," he bellows, "you sit on your throne while your people suffer. I'm here now. I'm what they need, a real god. So, come out and meet me." No answer comes, only the cold wind across the marble spires. Homelander smirks. "Fine. I'll come to you." He descends toward the Golden Gate, the threshold of the Emperor's sanctum. The custodes raise their halberds. The sky itself seems to dim. What none of them know is that the warp is watching too. And something beyond even chaos whispers, "Let him in." The sky over Terra bleeds gold and crimson as Homelander descends toward the Emperor's palace. Each beat of his heart sends shock waves through the air, each step closer, tearing open ancient wards woven by the Emperor himself. Lightning dances across the void shields that protect the Sanctum Imperialis, the same shields that have endured countless sieges, chaos incursions, and traitor bombardments. But they flicker now, not from fire or faith, but from the impossible physics of one man's will. Below, the Legio Custodes stand in perfect silence. The Emperor's chosen, clad in auramite and eternal discipline. Each of them has lived for millennia. Each one has slain demons, Primarch's kin, and horrors born from the warp. And yet as Homelander approaches, even they feel something they haven't in thousands of years: uncertainty. He stops before them, hovering a few feet above the marble causeway. His cape flutters in the thermals. His eyes gleam with faint amusement. "Nice armor," he says. "You guys the Emperor's fan club?" Captain General Trajan Valoris steps forward, halberd in hand, his voice calm and resonant. "You tread upon sacred ground, alien. Turn back. You are not welcome here." Homelander smiles, lowering himself until his boots touch the marble. "Alien? That's rich. I look more human than half of you. Leave while you still breathe." Homelander's grin widens. "You know, people used to talk to me like that. They're all dead now." With a flash of red light, the first custodian dies, vaporized instantly. The rest react as one. The air fills with the shimmer of golden blades and the hum of kinetic discharges. Homelander moves through them like a storm, faster than sight, stronger than any mortal machine. Every blow that lands shatters stone and bends steel. And yet the custodes endure. They are not simple soldiers. They are demigods of their own. When their halberds strike, they draw blood. When they chant the Emperor's name, their faith burns hotter than Homelander's heat vision. For the first time, he struggles. "Impressive," he growls, deflecting a halberd stroke that could have split a tank. "But I'm still better." Valoris meets him head-on, blades singing with energy. "Better," he snarls. "You are hollow." They clash, and for a moment, the sky itself seems to shatter. The shockwave ripples across Terra, breaking windows in the spires of the Administratum and toppling statues older than most civilizations. The ground craters beneath them. Homelander grabs Valoris by the throat, crushing his armor. "I'm not hollow," he spits. "I'm perfect." Valoris thrusts his blade through Homelander's side. The weapon sinks deep, glowing with psychic energy drawn from the Emperor's will. Homelander's scream splits the heavens, rage, not pain. He wrenches the blade free and snaps it in half. "You think your god cares about you?" he snarls. "He's just a corpse on a chair." Before Valoris can reply, Homelander slams him into the marble floor with a force that cracks the very foundations of the palace. The custodes regroup, forming a golden ring around their fallen commander. But before they can advance again, a voice, not of flesh, but of eternity, echoes in every mind on Terra. Enough. The battle stops. Homelander straightens, looking around. The air itself seems to thicken. His heart rate spikes. Something ancient, vast, and immeasurably heavy presses down on him. "You seek the Emperor of mankind." The voice doesn't come from the sky, or the palace, or the warp. It comes from everywhere, from the stones, from the air, from inside his skull. Homelander's smirk falters. "Finally," he whispers, "about time you showed up." He rises into the air, scanning the horizon. "You've been sitting there while your people starve, while your galaxy burns, while they worship you. That's not leadership. That's cowardice." The voice does not answer immediately. When it does, it shakes reality itself. You are not of my creation. You are not bound to the warp. You are aberration. Homelander laughs. Aberration? That's what they called me back home too. Guess you and I have something in common. No, the Emperor's voice thunders. We do not. For the briefest moment, the clouds above part, and a single beam of golden light pierces the sky. It hits Homelander like a meteor. He crashes into the marble, molten cracks spidering out for miles. The custodes watch as he struggles to rise, his skin smoking, his cape in tatters. He looks up, eyes burning with defiance. That all you got? The light intensifies. Homelander screams, forced to one knee. The ground trembles as the psychic might of the Emperor focuses solely upon him. The will that has crushed demons, banished gods, and held the Astronomicon alight for 10,000 years. And yet, impossibly, Homelander does not die. His body heals even as it burns. His screams turn to laughter. You can't kill me, he roars. I'm the best. I'm what your people need. The Emperor's presence falters for a fraction of a second, not out of weakness, but out of surprise. Because Homelander's mind is not a mind. There is no soul to strike, no tether to the warp to sever. He exists completely outside the Emperor's reach. The god of mankind cannot destroy what does not belong to man's reality. Homelander rises slowly, blood boiling off his skin, grin spreading wide. Guess what, old man? Your magic doesn't work on me. High above, the sky darkens. The warp reacts violently to the clash of incompatible realities. A storm blossoms over Terra. Not a demonic invasion, but something new, raw, and unstable. The Imperium screams as the Emperor's psychic field collides with a being beyond its comprehension. On Luna, the Mechanicus detect impossible readings. Local space-time distortion. Reality integrity. Degrading. On Mars, the tech priests fall to their knees as their machines begin to chant the Emperor's name on their own. In the warp, the Chaos Gods laugh. Slanesh moans in ecstasy. He wounds the Emperor's pride. Delicious Tzeentch's voice coils like smoke, a mortal unbound by the Imperium. Perhaps the perfect pawn, Khorne merely rumbles. If he bleeds, I will have his skull. And Nurgle chuckles, let the infection of arrogance spread. Back on Terra, Homelander stands amid the ruin, breathing heavily. His costume is scorched, his body bruised, but he's alive. More than alive. Empowered. The golden light fades, leaving the air thick with ozone and silence. He looks toward the palace, toward the sealed doors of the throne room. You're scared, he whispers. You can feel it, can't you? For the first time in forever, someone stood up to you. The custodes tighten formation, weapons raised again. Homelander turns to them, his smile returning. Wider, crueler. You should have stayed out of my way. The plaza erupts in crimson light. When it fades, only ashes remain. Far above the world, the Imperial fleet records the energy signature, brighter than any recorded star. It lasts precisely 7 minutes, then silence. No signal, no survivors. But deep within the Golden Throne, the Emperor's psychic voice echoes through the warp once more. Not in fury, but in grim recognition. He cannot be slain. Not yet. Across the Imperium, the shock of that statement reverberates through the minds of every psyker alive. Some fall dead instantly, others go mad. The few who survive whisper a new prophecy. The false sun rises. He who is no soul, yet breaks all faith. The silent god returns. The galaxy doesn't yet understand what those words mean, but the warp does. And somewhere, in the endless void between realities, Something older than the Chaos Gods stirs awake, and Homelander, wiping blood from his mouth, laughing quietly to himself, looks toward the stars and says, "Let's see who else wants to play God." The moment the Imperium realized Homelander was not just another rogue psyker or demigod was when he turned his gaze skyward. Above Holy Terra's spire cities, an Imperial Navy cruiser had drifted too close, its sensors trained on the newcomer without authorization. In seconds, Homelander was in orbit. No ship, no propulsion, just will. The vacuum didn't touch him. Radiation slid off his skin like sunlight. He hovered before the cruiser's viewport, staring into the faces of horrified bridge officers. When the captain raised the Aquila in trembling salute, Homelander smiled and sliced the ship clean in half with twin beams of red. Billions watched that act through the Imperium's vast network of relay-picked feeds. On Terra, the ecclesiarchy scrambled to interpret it. Some called it divine wrath, others heresy. The Inquisition took a simpler view. They now had a class excommunicate traitorous threat capable of planetary destruction without ordnance. Still, there was a strange hesitation. Homelander wasn't attacking. After the cruiser's destruction, he descended once more and delivered a simple message to the nearest astropathic choir. "Tell your Emperor I'm here to help." Those words rippled across the Imperium like a psychic storm. Help from an unregistered superhuman who had just murdered 1,000 loyal souls? But the Adeptus Astra Telepathica confirmed the sincerity behind his tone. No malice, no deceit. It was as if he genuinely believed he was doing good. That paradox became the foundation for the next chapter of the galaxy's chaos. On Terra, the High Lords convened. Inquisitors screamed for his extermination. The Adeptus Custodes refused to act without the Emperor's direct command. The Ecclesiarch declared a planetary-wide fast and prayer vigil. But among all the confusion, the Mechanicus saw potential. They dispatched a Magos biologist named Thassilon Prime to approach the being. Perhaps his biology could be studied, harnessed, even replicated. Homelander met the Magos over the ruins of Luna's once busy manufactoria. Thassilon arrived with a retinue of servitors chanting binary psalms. Homelander floated silently before him, cape snapping in vacuum. "You're not like the others," he observed. "You don't worship." "You study the Magos," in his static snarled voice, replied, "The Omnissiah reveals himself through pattern and flesh. You are anomaly incarnate. Permission to sample?" Homelander laughed. "You want a piece of me?" Sure, he offered his hand. The moment a mechadendrite touched him, the entire assembly of servitors collapsed, circuits melting. Thassilon's visual sensors overloaded. His machine spirit screamed. "You shouldn't have done that," Homelander murmured, not in anger, but pity. "You can't handle perfection." The Magos was found later, drifting among the wreckage, his mind an unsolvable code. Yet the Mechanicus recovered fragments from his data coffers. Fragmented recordings showing Homelander's cells self-sustaining without entropy, each particle vibrating with energy indistinguishable from psychic resonance. For the first time, the Mechanicus began to whisper that perhaps he was not a mutant or demigod, but something beyond physics. Meanwhile, across the galaxy, the warp reacted. Demons stirred uneasily. Tzeentch's realm rippled with curiosity. Slaanesh felt both hunger and dread. Khorne roared in rage that such a being shed blood without offering worship. And Nurgle simply waited, patient as decay. The Chaos Gods had felt power before, but Homelander was different. His essence wasn't of the warp. He existed outside its influence. He did not feed on belief or emotion. He was a closed loop of will and delusion, an echo of godhood that neither thrived nor decayed. Then came the test. On the forge world of Gaia, a warp rift opened mid-orbit. Demons poured forth, a tide of crimson and smoke. Imperial reinforcements were still days away. Homelander arrived alone. Sensors captured what followed, though many were corrupted by the psychic backlash. He didn't summon weapons or shields. He simply looked at the demons, and they burned. The sky turned to glass. Those who witnessed it claimed his eyes unleashed not light, but judgment. When the rift finally sealed, only silence remained. Millions dead. The forge world vaporized, and yet the Imperium declared it a miracle. Pilgrimages began. Shrines rose bearing his symbol, a stylized eagle of 2 wings, 1 gold, 1 red. The ecclesiarchy despised it, but the people had already chosen their new saint. They called him the Angel of Terror. Homelander welcomed it. He smiled before crowds of worshippers, spoke of protection, justice, destiny. But deep down, the cracks in his psyche widened. These weren't his people. They didn't love him, not the way he needed. They feared and obeyed, but their faith was impersonal. He wanted adoration, intimacy, dependence. To Homelander, the Imperium's worship of the Emperor felt like betrayal. And so, one day, he entered the ecclesiarchal palace uninvited. The confessors fled as his footsteps echoed against marble and gold. Before the grand statue of the God Emperor, he paused. "You're just sitting there," he whispered to the frozen throne miles above. "Letting them die, letting them rot. And they call you a god?" Lightning flashed from his eyes. The statue cracked. He stared at the fragments, breathing hard. For the first time, something in him felt small, as though this world didn't bend as easily as his old one had. Then came a voice. It wasn't heard, but felt. Ancient, distant, burning through the air like psychic sunlight. It said only one word. "Enough." Homelander froze. Every molecule in the palace trembled. The voice was faint, but infinite. The Emperor's will stirring from the golden throne. In that instant, Homelander felt fear. Real fear. He turned his gaze toward the Imperial Palace, eyes blazing. "So you are alive," he said softly. "Then why hide behind a corpse?" Across Terra, psychers screamed and dropped dead as the Emperor's aura brushed against reality. Custodes took position, but they knew better than to attack without command. The 2 titans, one divine by legend, the other self-proclaimed, now stood at the brink of confrontation. But the Emperor did not rise. His psychic echo withdrew, leaving only silence. Homelander's expression twisted. He wanted acknowledgement, challenge, validation. Instead, he was dismissed. That dismissal would haunt him more than any battle wound. From that day onward, his tone changed. He began patrolling not for justice, but obedience. Cities that faltered in faith were razed. Governors who questioned his divinity were executed mid-air. He renamed the shrine Worlds after himself. The Imperial creed splintered, birthing sects who claimed the Angel of Terror had replaced the God Emperor. The Inquisition burned billions to contain it, and failed. Through it all, Homelander smiled in every picked feed, blue eyes glowing with messianic warmth. Yet behind the facade, his ego fractured under the galaxy's indifference. The Imperium's bureaucracy could never love him. Its people could never satisfy him. And so, his gaze began to drift outward, toward the stars beyond the Astronomicon, where other civilizations thrived without worshipping him. In the shadows of the warp, Tzeentch whispered to the other gods, "He will either be our greatest weapon or the flame that ends it all." The galaxy waited. Homelander was no longer a visitor. He was becoming something far worse. a god who believed himself still human. And the Emperor was finally watching. Across the galaxy, whispers spread of the Angel of Terror's growing dominion. Entire sectors began pledging allegiance not to the Emperor, but to Homelander. Pilgrims carried banners of red and gold, bearing his likeness, arms outstretched, cape flowing like divine wings. To the faithful, he was the Emperor reborn. To the Inquisition, he was the greatest heretic since Horus. Yet, unlike Horus, there was no chaos taint to blame, no demon whispering from the shadows. Homelander's corruption came from within, pure, unfiltered self-worship. On Cadia's ruins, Imperial Guard veterans spoke of him in hushed tones. They had seen tyrants and demigods, psychers and primarchs, but nothing like him. He needed no army, no fleet, no relics of power. His presence alone could silence rebellion. When he appeared in orbit, even hardened soldiers knelt. It wasn't faith that made them bow, it was terror dressed as devotion. Still, Homelander believed it was love. Every time he flew above adoring crowds, he soaked in their chants like sunlight. Their fear meant nothing to him if they smiled while trembling. It was enough. It had to be. Because beneath the godlike power, Homelander was still the same fragile man-child who needed constant validation. But the Imperium is not a place that allows unchecked divinity. The Inquisition, divided as it was, reached a rare consensus. Homelander was a greater existential threat than any Xenos or demon. He had to be removed, not just destroyed, but erased from memory, purged from the Imperial creed. Leading the secretive effort was Inquisitor Lord Arcturus Vale, a man known for silencing entire worlds to protect the Imperium's unity. Vale was no fool. He knew they couldn't face Homelander militarily. Instead, he turned to the one force that might stand against godhood, the Adeptus Astartes, specifically the Grey Knights. On Titan, in the shadow of the Silver Spires, Vale met with Supreme Grandmaster Kaldor Drago. The two spoke in a sealed sanctum, their words never recorded. What was known is this: Drago listened in silence, his face carved from stone. Then he said only, "We will try." Soon after, a psychic disturbance rippled through the warp. Not an invasion, but a summoning. Homelander sensed it instantly. He descended from the void and found himself standing on the moon of Epsilon Nox, a dead rock lit by a single crimson sun. Waiting for him were the Grey Knights, arrayed in perfect formation, silver armor gleaming. Their psychic presence pressed against his mind like a blade. Homelander smiled. "You think you can stop me with prayers and metal suits?" Drago stepped forward, Nemesis blade raised. "We are not here to stop you, creature. We are here to measure you." The battle that followed was unlike anything recorded in Imperial archives. Homelander moved faster than the eye could follow, tearing through squads like paper. Bolters, melter blasts, psychic wards, all useless. Every strike against him shattered before contact. But the Grey Knights fought on, chanting the Emperor's name with every blow, their faith forming a psychic shield strong enough to touch him. Drago's sword struck Homelander's chest, not to wound, but to mark. The blade burned his flesh for the first time in his existence. He staggered back, eyes wide with disbelief. "That hurt." Drago's voice was calm. "Then you can bleed. And if you can bleed, you can die." For the first time, Homelander knew fear, not from rejection or dismissal, but from mortality. His fury erupted like a sun. He unleashed beams that carved the moon in half, obliterating everything around them. Yet Drago stood firm, shielded by psychic wards powered by pure devotion. When the dust cleared, Epsilon Nox was gone, reduced to debris orbiting its sun. Drago vanished into the warp, his fate unknown. Homelander floated amidst the ruin, chest smoking, cape torn. He stared at the wound on his body, small but real. And then something else happened. He heard whispers, not from within, but from beyond. The warp had noticed his vulnerability. Like sharks scenting blood, the Chaos Gods began to circle. Tzeentch spoke first, his voice like silk and starlight. "You see now, even you can break, but I can show you how to never bleed again." Khorne's voice thundered next. "You killed millions, yet you deny me tribute? Weak fool. You could bathe in eternal war." Slanesh's tone slithered through his mind. "They fear you, but none truly adore you. Let me show you pleasure, greater than worship." And finally Nurgle, gentle, patient. "You are lonely, my child. Let me embrace you. I do not judge." Homelander screamed, drowning out the gods. His body shone with golden light that burned the warp tide away. "I don't need any of you," he roared. "I'm better than you." For the briefest moment, even the Chaos Gods recoiled. Here was a being whose arrogance outshone their own. A mortal god hybrid who could reject their influence completely. Yet Tzeentch smiled in the shadows, for he saw the truth. Every defiance was a step closer to madness. Back in the material realm, the Imperium declared Epsilon Nox lost to warp instability. Officially, the Grey Knight's sacrifice was sanctified. Unofficially, Inquisitor Vale knew they had failed. Homelander lived. Worse, he had changed. He no longer called himself the Angel of Terror. He began referring to himself as the true Emperor. His sermons grew darker, his patience thinner. He spoke less of justice and more of purity, less of protection and more of dominion. He began constructing monuments, towers of adamantium that reached orbit, each one broadcasting his image across the stars. "The galaxy must learn love," he said, "even if I have to burn it into their hearts." His following became a cult of absolute devotion. Millions abandoned the Imperial Creed. Even Space Marine chapters fractured, a handful drawn to his charisma and power, swearing loyalty to what they believed was the Emperor reborn. Others prepared for civil war. On Mars, the Mechanicus calculated probabilities. If Homelander's reign expanded unchecked, the Imperium would collapse within a century. If opposed openly, extinction might come sooner. The logic engines found no victory scenario, and yet deep beneath the palace on Terra, the Emperor stirred once more. A pulse of psychic light spread through the Astronomicon, faint but unmistakable. Those attuned to the warp felt it, a heartbeat returning. Homelander felt it too. He turned toward Terra, eyes narrowing. For all his godlike arrogance, he understood the meaning instantly. The Emperor was waking up, and for the first time since his arrival in the galaxy, Homelander smiled, not out of joy, but anticipation. "Finally," he whispered, "someone worth my time." The Imperium was about to witness a confrontation that would shake the foundations of reality itself. The old god rising from his throne, and the false one who thought he could replace him. The war of heaven and ego was about to begin. The news spread across the stars, faster than astropathic sanctioners could comprehend. The Emperor of mankind was stirring. For 10,000 years, he had sat immobile upon the golden throne, neither living nor dead, sustained by the sacrifice of 1,000 souls each day. But now, across the psychic lattice of the Astronomicon, something was shifting. The beacon flared brighter, pulsing like the heartbeat of a waking titan. To the faithful, it was the greatest miracle since the Great Crusade. To the Inquisition, it was a crisis beyond comprehension. And to Homelander, It was personal. He stood upon the upper atmosphere of terror, sunlight glinting off his armorless form, cape whipping in the void. His enhanced vision pierced clouds and cathedrals, drilling down through kilometers of adamantium, plasteel, and prayer until it reached the throne itself. He saw not a god, but a corpse sustained by machines and faith. "You've had your turn," he whispered. "Now it's mine." On the ground below, millions chanted his name. His cult had grown so vast that even the administratum couldn't keep count. The Angelic Order, as they called themselves, now governed entire sectors. Their creed was simple. The Emperor was the dawn, but Homelander is the day. But as terror itself began to shake with psychic tremors, that belief was about to be tested. Inside the Golden Throne Chamber, the Adeptus Custodes gathered. For millennia, they had stood vigil, emotionless, unyielding. Now, as the machine's conduits burned with golden fire, even they exchanged silent glances. Something ancient and impossible was happening. The corpse of the Emperor began to glow, not mechanically, but divinely. The air filled with the scent of ozone and sanctity. A voice echoed through the chamber, vast yet soft. So much noise, so much vanity. "The child of another world seeks to take my crown across terror." Homelander felt it like a whisper in his skull. He smiled, wide, exhilarated, almost giddy. "Oh, you're finally talking." Then, without sound or movement, he was gone. In the next instant, he stood within the Sanctum Imperialis itself, surrounded by custodes who instantly raised their guardian spears. "You dare breach the throne," one roared. Homelander didn't answer. He simply looked at them, and they froze. The psychic pressure of his presence was overwhelming, crushing. Even the Emperor's chosen hesitated before him. He approached the throne, eyes burning like twin suns. "Look at you," he said softly. 10,000 years. And this is what's left?" A fossil plugged into a chair. He cocked his head, studying the faint shimmer of golden energy that surrounded the Emperor's mummified form. "They still love you, you know. They kill, they die, they kneel, all for you. But you never say a word. I've done more for them in a year than you have in millennia." The air grew heavy. The very walls of the palace trembled. Then came the reply, not through speech, but through thought. A single word that filled every mind on terror. "Pride." Homelander laughed. "You're calling me prideful? You sit here pretending to be a god while your people starve in the dark." The Emperor's aura expanded, silencing every living creature in a 100-mile radius. "You misunderstand. Pride is not in thinking oneself greater than another. Pride is in thinking one's existence necessary." For the first time in his life, Homelander hesitated. Something in that tone, calm, eternal, disappointed, reminded him of every father he ever tried to impress and every god he tried to become. Then anger took over. His eyes flared red, and he fired twin beams of searing energy into the Emperor's chest. The throne's force fields screamed but held. Lightning cascaded through the chamber. The custodes lunged, only to be thrown back by a wave of pure force. Homelander screamed, "Say something! Fight back!" And the Emperor did. Golden fire erupted from the throne, engulfing the room. The air became molten with psychic energy. Homelander was hurled across the hall, his cape disintegrating. When he rose, his eyes met a shape descending from the flames. Not the corpse, but the presence within it, stepping into physical form for the first time in 10,000 years. The Emperor of mankind had returned. He no longer resembled the frail figure on the throne. His body shone like a sun, his armor forged from light itself. His face was youthful, yet ancient, kind, yet terrible. When he spoke, his voice was the sound of empires being born. "You are not of this galaxy," he said. "You come from a realm of lies and spectacle, where power is worshipped because it shines. But here, power serves, or it destroys." Homelander clenched his fists. "You think you can lecture me? You abandoned your people, I gave them hope." The Emperor's gaze pierced him. Hope founded on fear is not salvation, it is slavery. And then, the battle began. The skies above Terra split open as energy beyond comprehension collided. Homelander moved faster than thought, striking with fury that shattered mountains. The Emperor countered each blow effortlessly, his aura absorbing the force and transmuting it into blinding light. Their clash sent shockwaves across the solar system. The moon cracked. Mars' orbit shifted. Billions watched from afar, not through technology, but through faith. Every living soul connected to the Astronomicon saw flashes of their duel across their minds. Angels of fire and blood, wrestling for the soul of humanity. Homelander roared, "You're nothing without them. Without their belief, you'd fade away." The Emperor replied, "And without their love, you are empty." That word cut deeper than any blade. Empty. Homelander struck again, screaming in fury, but this time his strength faltered. The Emperor didn't fight back. He simply endured. Every punch Homelander threw rebounded into his own heart. Every blast reflected his self-loathing back at him. The Emperor was not destroying him. He was showing him what he truly was. A child playing God, desperate to be loved. Tears, real human tears, formed in Homelander's eyes as his energy began to fade. "They need me," he muttered. "They need someone strong." The Emperor stepped closer, towering, radiant. "They need meaning. Strength without purpose is tyranny. You seek adoration because you cannot face yourself." Homelander screamed, firing one last desperate blast. The Emperor raised his hand. The beam dissolved into harmless light. "Enough," he said again, as he had once before, and with that, the light consumed the throne room. When it faded, Homelander was gone. No body, no trace, only a faint scorch mark on the marble floor, shaped like wings. The Emperor returned to his throne, silent once more, but this time his eyes glowed faintly beneath the golden crown. He was awake. The custodes resumed their watch. The Inquisition sealed all records of the event. To the galaxy, nothing had changed. The Emperor still sat, unmoving, eternal. But in the warp, echoes lingered, faint, defiant, broken whispers of a man who refused to vanish completely. "I just wanted them to love me." And somewhere in the Imperium, something stirred. Because in the grim darkness of the far future, even gods cast long shadows. And some, no matter how fallen, never stop trying to be seen. If the early days of Homelander's arrival were marked by awe and confusion, the later days were defined by conflict. His golden image as a savior of mankind began to crack under the sheer weight of the Imperium's theology. The ecclesiarchy could not tolerate his godlike arrogance, and the Inquisition saw in him not a messiah, but a threat to the divine monopoly of the Emperor. And yet, millions had already turned to him. His face was painted on hive walls, his words echoed in the prayers of the desperate. Homelander had become the spark for something the Imperium feared most: heresy born from hope. The confrontation began quietly, not on the battlefield, but in whispers. Priests were executed for refusing to denounce him. Entire regiments were reassigned to distant fronts. Astropaths who dreamed of a man shining like the sun were silenced. But Homelander was not blind. He saw the growing hostility, and rather than retreat, he leaned into it. "I'm not your emperor," he declared before a crowd of billions on the agri-world of Balcora. "I'm better. I don't sit in a chair waiting for others to die for me. I protect you." Personally, that single broadcast rippled across the stars. To the common man, it was liberation, a promise of safety, not from faith, but from flesh and blood strength. To the ecclesiarchy, it was an abomination, and to the high lords of terror, it was war. Within weeks, inquisitorial kill teams were dispatched. They struck at worlds that harbored Homelander's followers, burning entire cities under the pretense of purging heresy. But for every fire they lit, he extinguished 10 more. Homelander would descend through the atmosphere like a falling star, cutting through orbital bombardments with his bare hands. He would grab Thunderhawks mid-flight, rip open land raiders, and crush Astartes like clay. Even the Adeptus Astartes, legends of humanity's strength, found themselves powerless against him. And that was when things truly began to unravel. The Ultramarines, ever the paragons of order, tried diplomacy. Chapter Master Marneus Calgar sent envoys to reason with the so-called God in flesh. Homelander's response was as predictable as it was horrifying. He invited the envoys into orbit over Balcora, and then tore open their ship with his bare hands, letting them drift into the void. The footage leaked within hours. Billions watched as he floated amid their bodies, eyes glowing like twin suns, saying simply, "No more masters." The galaxy had seen rebellions before. It had seen chaos cults, alien invasions, demon uprisings. But this was different. This was humanity turning against itself, not out of corruption or madness, but out of admiration. For the first time in 10,000 years, someone rivaled the Emperor's myth, not through doctrine, but through spectacle. Homelander became the symbol of unshackled humanity. Across 100 worlds, guardsmen refused orders to fire on civilians waving his banners. Entire regiments defected, calling themselves the Free Sons. Their creed was simple: we kneel to none. The Inquisition declared exterminatus on 3 of those worlds. Yet even as fire consumed them, survivors reported a golden figure hovering above the flames, untouched, arms outstretched, as if mocking the Emperor himself. The warp began to tremble. For centuries, the Chaos Gods had feasted on fear, pain, and despair. But now, something new echoed through the Imperium. Pride. Raw, unfiltered pride. Khorne reveled in Homelander's bloodlust, Tzeentch in his manipulation, Slaanesh in his self-worship. Even Nurgle found joy in the decay of faith. They whispered his name through the dreams of psychers, twisting it, savoring it. And Homelander heard them. He began to see visions, strange shapes moving behind the veil of reality, voices promising eternal adoration. For a moment, he hesitated. He wasn't stupid. He knew manipulation when he saw it. But flattery was his weakness. The idea that he could be more than human, that the galaxy itself could bend to his will, thrilled him. The final break came during his first encounter with a Space Marine chapter devoted entirely to his destruction, the Black Templars. They ambushed him on the shrine world of Dalmora, where Homelander had come to liberate pilgrims from the Church's taxes. The Templars dropped from orbit, landing in a halo of flame, their battle cries echoing across the ruins. Their chaplain raised his crozius and shouted, "You are no god, abomination. You are the lie that mocks his light." Homelander smiled. "Then let's see how bright your god burns." The battle was over in minutes. Bolter shells shattered against his skin. Power swords broke on impact. He moved faster than their auto sensors could track, tearing through black armor like paper. When it was over, he stood alone among corpses, holding the chaplain's broken body aloft. "You worship a corpse," he said, voice calm, eyes distant. "I'm right here." That image spread across the galaxy. Billions saw it, a man drenched in blood, glowing like a false sun. The ecclesiarchy called him the Great Heretic. His followers called him the Living Dawn. But the warp had begun to notice something else. He was feeding it. Every scream, every act of defiance, every death in his name poured psychic energy into the Imperium. The Chaos Gods began to circle him like sharks, sensing blood. He was not a servant of chaos yet, but he was becoming its perfect vessel. Meanwhile, on Terra, the Emperor stirred. Not in body, for his flesh was long since rotted, but in mind. Deep within the Golden Throne, his psychic presence pulsed with new awareness. He saw what Homelander was, not a champion of man, but a reflection of everything humanity's arrogance could create when untethered from faith. In that moment, the Emperor sent a thought across the warp. Not a command, but a whisper. It reached Guilliman, the resurrected Primarch, who was overseeing the Indomitus Crusade. "Find him," the Emperor's voice said, distant yet absolute. "End him." And so, the stage was set. The Imperium's greatest living warrior against the galaxy's most dangerous man. A demigod born of genetics versus one born of delusion. As fleets mobilized, Homelander looked toward the stars. He could sense the storm coming, and for the first time since his arrival, he felt something close to fear. Not for his life, but for his throne. Because somewhere deep down, beneath all the pride and power, he understood a simple truth. The galaxy would never worship two gods, and only one of them could survive the dawn to come. The Imperium's retaliation began not with thunder or fire, but with silence. Entire sectors went dark. Vox channels went dead. Warp travel was cut off by psychic storms so intense they shredded navigators' minds. To Homelander, it felt like the galaxy itself was holding its breath. Then one night, or whatever passed for night, beneath the shattered skies of Balcora, the stars themselves shifted. Fleets emerged from the void. Thousands of vessels bearing the sigils of the Ultramarines, the Custodes, and even the Grey Knights. At their head was Roboute Guilliman, the Emperor's chosen son. Homelander hovered above the planet's atmosphere, arms crossed, staring down at the endless armada arrayed against him. His smirk was faint, but his eyes blazed like suns. "Guess Daddy finally sent someone to spank me," he murmured. For Guilliman, there was no amusement. He had seen the cost of heresy, entire civilizations consumed by the arrogance of false gods. And though this Homelander was flesh and blood, his pride was as toxic as any demon prince's. Guilliman broadcast a single message across all channels. "You are not the light of mankind. You are its shadow. Surrender now, and I will make your death merciful." Homelander's reply came not through words, but through action. He punched the air. The kinetic shockwave shattered the void, vaporizing the first line of Imperial frigates like insects in a flame. The Battle of Balcora had begun. The fleets opened fire, unleashing every weapon known to man. Lances of plasma and macro cannon shells screamed across the void. Homelander cut through them like meteors through snow. He tore ships apart with his bare hands, his laughter echoing over the Vox like divine mockery. Imperial commanders watched in disbelief as their ordnance failed to even scratch him. On the surface, millions prayed, some for deliverance, others for vengeance. Pilgrims knelt before statues of the Emperor, while in secret, others raised banners of gold, emblazoned with a single red star, Homelander's emblem. The galaxy's faith was splitting like glass. Guilliman realized brute force would not suffice. "He feeds on fear," he said grimly to his advisors, "on belief. Every shot we fire only strengthens his legend. We must break the illusion." And so the Primarch devised a plan, one as audacious as it was desperate. Deep beneath the surface of Balcora lay a temple once dedicated to the Emperor, now defiled by Homelander's cult. Guilliman's forces would infiltrate it, carrying a weapon not of iron, but of truth, a relic known as the Mirror of Souls, capable of reflecting a being's true nature. The Grey Knights, masters of psychic warfare, took on the mission. As they descended into the catacombs, the air shimmered with power. Homelander sensed it. Instantly, he left the battle above and streaked down toward the planet like a golden comet, trailing fire and fury. He burst into the temple in a blaze of heat, vaporizing stone with a glance. "You think you can hide from me?" he sneered. "You think your toys can stop me?" The Grey Knights did not answer. They simply raised the mirror. Its surface rippled like water, catching Homelander's reflection. For a moment, he saw himself as he imagined, radiant, perfect, divine. Then the image shifted. He saw blood, fear, the faces of the innocents he had slaughtered, the adoration he demanded, the terror he inspired. The god he thought he was twisted into the monster he truly had become. For a heartbeat, Homelander faltered. His confidence cracked, his breathing uneven. No, that's not me. That's not what they see." But the mirror showed only truth, and truth was a cruel thing. Guilliman appeared then, stepping from the shadows, armor gleaming with cerulean fire. "Do you see now?" he said, voice heavy with both pity and judgment. "You are not salvation. You are the disease that kills it." Homelander's eyes flared. "Shut up." "You were never meant to lead mankind," Guilliman continued, raising his flaming sword, "only to remind it of what it must never become." "I said shut up!" The scream shattered the temple. The mirror exploded, its psychic energy tearing through the planet's crust. The ground erupted into molten fury as the two titans clashed, Guilliman's sword against Homelander's fists. The impact created waves of energy that flattened cities. Storms raged across the atmosphere. Every punch Homelander threw could have cracked a moon. Every counter from Guilliman burned with psychic wrath. But for all his might, Homelander was slowing. The truth he had seen haunted him, eating away at his certainty. Guilliman, on the other hand, fought with purpose, not to kill, but to redeem humanity's soul. As the battle raged, the warp boiled. The Chaos Gods leaned closer, their whispers rising to a fever pitch. "Accept us," they murmured. "Become more. Become eternal." Homelander hesitated. Power beckoned, infinite, intoxicating. If he gave in, he could crush Guilliman with a thought, remake the galaxy in his image. All he had to do was surrender. But then he remembered the mirror, the faces, the screams, the fear in their eyes, his people's eyes. And for the first time, Homelander understood. He didn't want to save humanity. He wanted it to love him, to fear him, to need him. That realization broke something inside him. The whispers turned to laughter. The Chaos Gods withdrew, no longer interested in a man who could see his own rot. Guilliman struck. His sword pierced Homelander's chest, burning through flesh and bone. The light in Homelander's eyes dimmed. He staggered back, gasping, staring down at the wound that refused to heal. "You think this makes you right?" he rasped. "You think killing me will make them love your corpse on a throne again? Gilliman's expression was unreadable. No, he said quietly, but it will make them remember why they must never love you. He twisted the blade. Homelander screamed, not in pain, but in rage, in denial, in the collapse of his entire delusion. The sound carried across the warp, echoing through realities. When the light finally faded, there was nothing left of him, only the faint scent of ozone and a scorch mark where he had fallen. Gilliman stood over the ashes, breathing heavily. He looked to the sky, to the billions who had watched, and whispered, "The dawn has ended." Above Balcora, the fleets ceased fire. Across the Imperium, propaganda spread like wildfire. The false god has fallen. The Emperor's will prevails. The heresy was crushed, but the scars would remain. In the quiet that followed, Gilliman gave a final order. "Erase his name," he told the scribes. "Let no record of this madness survive." But secrets in the Imperium never stay buried forever. In the far reaches of the warp, beyond time and sanity, a flicker of golden light stirred. Faint, fragile, but alive. And though none could hear it, a voice whispered in the dark, "You can't kill the idea of me." The stars trembled. The gods smiled. The galaxy waited. The end, or perhaps the beginning, of something far worse. Centuries passed. The name Homelander became myth, erased from official records, forbidden from sermons, remembered only in half-spoken legends whispered by those who had seen the false dawn. The Imperium rebuilt, as it always did, upon the bones of its martyrs and monsters. Balcora was reduced to ash, sealed off by decree of the Inquisition, declared a world too tainted for redemption. And yet deep beneath its molten surface, something stirred. The Imperium's scholars and scribes dismissed the phenomenon at first. Faint warp anomalies, psychic echoes, nothing new in a galaxy steeped in madness. But the readings persisted. Every few years, the pattern would repeat. A pulse, rhythmic, almost like a heartbeat. It wasn't random. It was deliberate. Meanwhile, across the stars, a strange cult began to re-emerge. They called themselves the Children of the Light, and their creed was simple. The Emperor gave us order. The dawn gave us choice. Their symbol, a golden sun split by a single crimson stripe, appeared on hive walls, in mining colonies, even carved into the hulls of drifting derelicts. The ecclesiarchy dismissed them as another heretical remnant, yet the pattern of their spread unnerved even the Inquisition. These weren't mindless zealots. They were organized, disciplined, and disturbingly unified. Inquisitor Lyra Voss was the first to uncover their truth. A veteran of 10 purges, she followed the trail of the cult from the hives of Necromunda to the ghost ships of the Eastern Fringe. What she found defied comprehension. The cult wasn't led by a prophet or a demon host. It was guided by visions. Thousands of members, spread across light years, claimed to dream of the same man. Golden hair, glowing eyes, a voice that spoke not of servitude or worship, but of destiny. Voss was no fool. She had read the sealed files from the heresy of the dawn, files that spoke of a being who could shatter warships with his fists and burn worlds with his gaze. If these dreams were real, if something of him remained, then perhaps the galaxy's most dangerous man was not as dead as history claimed. She brought her findings to Terra. Most of the High Lords scoffed, but Gilliman did not. He remembered the battle, the mirror, the final scream that tore the sky apart. He knew power like that didn't simply end. It lingered. It waited. So he gathered the Grey Knights once more and sanctioned a new crusade. Not to conquer, but to contain. The fleet set course for Balcora. that cursed world where a false god had fallen. As they descended through the charred clouds, they found the ruins of the old temple, cracked, buried, but still pulsing with residual warp energy. At its center lay a crater that seemed to breathe. Gilliman stepped forward, the air humming with memory. "If you live," he said quietly, "show yourself." The ground trembled. A pillar of molten light erupted from the crater, spiraling into the clouds. The blast knocked even the custodies to their knees. Gilliman raised his blade, but what emerged was not a god. Not anymore. Homelander rose slowly, his once perfect form scarred, cracked, his cape tattered and blackened. The eyes that had once burned like suns now glowed dimly, flickering like dying candles. He looked at his hands as if seeing them for the first time. "So, this is what eternity feels like," he murmured, his voice hollow, almost human. The warriors surrounding him took aim, but Gilliman raised a hand. "Hold your fire," he said. "He's not the same." Homelander's gaze lifted. For a long moment neither spoke. Then he smiled faintly, not the smug grin of a god, but the weary smile of a man who had seen too much. "You won," he said. "They love your emperor again. They pray to his corpse and thank him for their chains. You must be proud." Gilliman's jaw tightened. "I didn't win. Humanity did. You were a cancer that would have burned it from the inside." Homelander chuckled softly. "Funny. That's what I thought about you." He took a step forward, and the custodes moved instantly, weapons raised. Gilliman didn't flinch. "You shouldn't exist," the Primarch said. "Neither should you," Homelander replied. "We're both relics pretending to matter in a universe that's already forgotten us." The silence between them was heavy, not with hatred, but with something stranger, recognition. Homelander looked to the horizon, to the broken world beneath him. "You think I wanted this? I just wanted them to see me, to believe in something real." Gilliman's voice was quiet, almost compassionate. "They did. And that's why you were dangerous. They believed too much." Homelander's laughter was soft, bitter. "Maybe that's what it means to be human." He turned away, gazing into the crimson sky. "You can kill me again if you want. But it won't matter. They'll dream of me. They'll remember me. You can't control that." Gilliman raised his sword. "No," he said, "but I can make sure those dreams never wake." Before he could strike, Homelander spread his arms wide, not in defiance, but in surrender. "Go ahead, son of the corpse god. Do what you do best." But Gilliman didn't move. Something in the defeated man before him, something raw, almost pitiful, stopped him. The Primarch lowered his weapon. "No, not this time." He turned to his warriors. "Seal the site. Let him stay buried. The galaxy doesn't need another martyr." As they withdrew, Homelander watched them go. His body trembled, his strength fading. Alone once more, he stared at the horizon. In the distance, the sun broke through the ash clouds, bathing the ruins in golden light. For a fleeting moment, it reflected in his eyes, two dying stars, remembering what it meant to shine. He whispered to the wind, "They'll need me again someday. They always do." And then he vanished, not in fire or glory, but like a shadow dissolving into dawn. Decades later, pilgrims visiting the sealed world of Balcora spoke of seeing a golden figure in the clouds, watching, silent, eternal. Some said it was an angel, others said it was a warning. The Imperium, of course, denied it all. But in the darkest corners of the galaxy, the children of the light still whispered his name in reverence. Not as a god, not as a savior, but as a reminder that even in a universe ruled by tyranny and faith, A man once dared to stand alone. And somewhere, in the endless storm of the warp, the laughter of the gods echoed faintly, followed by the sound of wings cutting through the void. The galaxy had forgotten Homelander, but the warp had not, because some lights never truly die. They just wait for the next night to fall.